Hey guys, so today I'm gonna be shooting with my iPhone because this is a very important and serious topic to talk about. No, my camcorder is a bit fucked up, like it can't capture low light for some reason, so yeah, I'm just gonna take this off because it's a bit distracting. I don't expect it to be like a very serious and like informational video. I'm the reason why I'm doing this in the car also is because I'm highly inspired by Madeline RG podcast videos. She's always like in her car talking for like an hour straight, and I thought that this is kind of like the vibe that I want to emulate. So if you're doing something like folding clothes or like doing chores, please do that so that you don't get bored of listening to me. I want to give like a disclaimer that I'm not a licensed therapist or like a licensed psychologist, so obviously take whatever I say with a grain of salt. Whatever I'm saying is like from the perspective of my experiences and what I've been through, also whatever that I've heard from my therapist. So like don't quote me on certain things. Like I'm just sharing what I know, okay? And I don't know a lot of things. I'll be putting in timestamps, so if you want to skip to certain parts, feel free to do so. Trauma. Oh, I have a laptop with me, just like have like points so that I don't get like off tangent. What the fuck is trauma anyways? I don't want to say I experienced trauma at the age of 19, 11th October 2020. That's like a bit insane to think about it. But okay, I think I first experienced a very traumatic event a few years back, like 3-4 years back. I'm not gonna go into details about that event because I just don't think that it's something to be shared, like for the people to know. Well, here's the thing about trauma is that you don't expect it, right? Like you didn't think that you were going, like pregnancy, for example. People go through pregnancy and they forget parts of it after they give birth, right? But you are expected to go through pregnancy, and people are preparing you to go through pregnancy. They just don't prepare you for the pain that you're going to experience. But from what I've experienced is that I never expected for that event to happen. I went into the event thinking that I was going to get like a certain result, but I got a fucking completely different result. I remembered that all I needed to do was to survive. I felt that anything else does not matter as long as I'm able to survive. I think trauma really reignited your survival instincts because you're really trying to protect yourself, and your body will do anything they can, or your mind will try to do anything they can to protect you and to make sure that you survive. I had a lot of things going on for me. I had an internship at that time. I had uni final year, so there were a lot of assignments that I needed to do. And you would think that, when I figure out how to survive, that parts of my life would continue to move on, right? Like I would continue to function as a normal human being and forget whatever happened in the past. No, newsflash, no, that's not how trauma works. I remembered that I get anxious at things that has no correlation with whatever happened. I was constantly repeating things in my head. I was really nervous that somebody was out to get me. I was more angry. I get impulsive. I had some addictive personalities. I shake my legs a lot. I run away from things whenever it gets a bit too hard. So you see, like whenever I have all these things, it really hinders me from doing my assignments, from going to work. And that's when I thought that, obviously now I'm able to kind of like see the bigger picture and see how it affected me as a human being. But at that time, I thought that was just an event that I was able to move on from, right? Clearly, like after experiencing whatever that I just said, I knew that I had to do something about it because it was really affecting, obviously me, but most importantly the people around me, right? And I was really blessed to have people around me to support me and things like that. But and of course I would tell them like, hey, I'm really anxious right now, I'm so scared, like I don't think I can go and do the group assignment, I need some time. Like obviously I could do that, but having to see them deal with whatever that I was dealing with was really painful, and I didn't, well, obviously eldest daughter syndrome, like I hate to kind of like rely my like too much of myself on people. I feel like it's a burden, and I felt like perhaps that I needed to find an external source of help. So I kind of like braved myself and went to see a therapist. Right, so another context is that at that time I was a uni student and I didn't have a lot of money. So obviously I was doing some internships and some odd jobs here and there, but it wasn't enough for me to be able to afford like 4 therapy sessions a month, right? So I was very like frugal about it in terms of going to therapy. So first I went to this therapy center. I could only afford the junior therapists, like the ones that interned with the therapy center, I think. So they're not technically licensed yet, but they're kind of like interns. So they have the knowledge, but they not necessarily the experience, right? So I remember like the first time I ever went to therapy, I remember I was just crying. Yes, it wasn't, I think it was just me building up all the feelings, because I like to do that. I like to bottle up my feelings. And then I just pour it all out, and I remember just crying, you know, and there were like boxes of tissues, and I think I just like finished a box of them. And it was somehow a bit embarrassing but liberating. Embarrassing because here I am crying in front of an inexperienced therapist, and she's really struggling to like kind of like regulate, not her emotions, but to regulate the surroundings, because like how could she like if it was me, I don't know what to respond if some girl just started crying like for no fucking reason, right? Because I remember like just crying even before speaking about it. But also liberating because I was able to like vocalize things that I wasn't able to vocalize before. I felt like maybe I couldn't say certain things to the people around me because I didn't want them to feel worried or whatever. And then I went for the second session, and we talked more about like processing the event in itself, because I never had the chance to really process what happened, or like went through the details and why I acted a certain way. It was just like kind of like a faded memory for me at that time. When people tell me or people ask me like what happened, I can just only say like 2-3 sentences, and then I forget the rest of the details, right? So during the second therapy session, I kind of like, basically if there's a building block, like I was putting blocks together to like make sense of the situation. After that I couldn't afford it anymore because it was like 200 ringgit per session, 150, I can't remember, but yeah, at that time I was only earning like slightly below 1k, and I had rent to pay, and I had food and stuff like that. So yeah, I couldn't afford it anymore, and it wasn't like my priority at the time, so I kind of stopped going to therapy for like the longest time. And then I think after my uni ended, I think, and I started my internship, I could afford obviously therapy again, but this time I wanted to make sure that I was able to afford a therapy that was gonna properly help me, because I think it's not that going for like a therapist that is more inexperienced is not good for me. It's just more so that maybe what I needed is probably some structure, how to regulate my emotions better, how to identify patterns, how to like, yeah, it's more towards like how instead of why, because I know why. I think throughout that period where I stopped going to therapy, I was getting really good at understanding why I did certain things. It's just that I didn't know how to regulate it, you know, because when I started working, it kind of got worse because I was interacting with more people, and I was dealing with much more complex things, you know, like I was dealing with imperfections at jobs, imposter syndrome and all that. And when you hit adulthood, you get hit with a lot of other difficult stuff, and it was meddling with a lot of my personal affairs. And yeah, that's why I decided to go to the second therapist, a trauma-informed therapist. So I knew that going into the therapy, the money that I'm paying, they're not gonna just be telling me, hey, do breathing work. Obviously breathing works. It's just that maybe for me, like I'm not really looking for breathing work, because if I wanted to know how to meditate or whatever, I can just search on the internet. I don't have to pay like 300-400 ringgit to see a therapist for that. So I went to a trauma-informed therapist so that I know that this therapist is going to give me like good insights on how to deal with my therapy, how to deal with my trauma. Yes, it was a bit expensive, but I thought that it was really like a good investment for me to like kind of start being a functional adult again. Yeah, obviously when you first meet a therapist, they will ask you to talk about the event. I was like, here we go again. And but this time I didn't cry that much. I think I was just like crying at the details because it kind of like shocked me how I'm still hurt from it, like how I was impacted by it. Because you would think that if it happened a year ago, you would kind of just like say it as it is, like, oh, this happened to me and whatever. But when the therapist asked me questions to like dig in for more details, I was surprised that I was touched by it. Like, whoa, I didn't know I was affected by it still. And that was kind of like fascinating to see that. Yeah, but I wasn't really like crying like I did with my first therapist. Yeah, and then I remember like for the second and third sessions, fourth sessions that I had with her, it was just more about understanding how I felt in terms of models, frameworks. Because I don't know, maybe she kind of sensed that I'm that type of person, so that I like to have structure in understanding things. So she gave me a model, and this model is called the system dynamics model, and it really helped me in understanding like what trauma really does to you. I thought that I'd share this for you guys because I know that not everybody have access to see a therapist, and that fucking sucks, by the way, because everybody should have access to these kinds of things. I'm just gonna put a picture of what it is here. So in this diagram, you can see that it's being split into two parts. Going on with normal life part of the self, and also trauma related parts of the self. You have this part of yourself that really wants to move on from the situation, but at the same time, you also have this one part of yourself that is holding you back from moving on. And that's the trauma related parts of your personality. So the trauma related parts of the personality includes fight, flight, freeze, submit, and attach. Fight is the part of you that really wants to resist. This is the part where you are impulsive, where you get angry, when you get judgmental, when you're basically that emo kid in class. Flight is somebody who likes to escape from situations. They are avoidant, they distance themselves, they cannot commit, they have a very addictive personality, they like to drink, take drugs or whatever, because it's easier to forget than to actually deal with the situation itself, right? Freeze is a personality that is fueled by fear. This is when you are you have a phobia of getting seen by other people or to be perceived by other people. If you're in a situation where you need to like run away from things, you just like stand there because you don't know how to act, and you end up getting bitten by a snake. I don't know. Submit is done through shame. You feel a lot of regret and you blame yourself a lot, so you end up getting depressed. Sometimes you end up being a people pleaser because you rather please other people than please yourself, so you end up sacrificing a lot of that parts. And then there's attached needy, where it's like you're desperate to lean on somebody, so you end up clinging onto the people around you. You're scared of being alone or being abandoned, so you try your best to like cling onto as many people as you can. You also crave rescue and connection with other people, probably because I don't know, maybe you've been like the scapegoat, so you want somebody to like kind of support you, and you want them to defend you whenever there's like conflict arises, right? When my therapist first told me about this, I think because I resonate more with like fight and flight, I thought that the others were kind of irrelevant, but my therapist said that you can be a little bit of everything, and that makes much more sense actually, because I remembered that I was angry, I was judgmental, I was controlling, but I also had kind of like addictive personality. At the same time, I was afraid of being seen and being perceived by other people. That's why for the longest time I stopped doing social media, because I didn't want anybody to see me. Yeah, I was depressed and I blamed a lot of things that happened because of myself. Also, I was really desperate for human connection, because I thought that because of this event, nobody will understand me and I won't be able to like have a genuine friendship with anybody else. When I first got this information, obviously I was a bit overwhelming. Like, okay, great, you gave me this framework, I understand it, but what the fuck do I do with it, right? And then my therapist told me that just imagine the trauma parts of the personality is a kid, right? So fight is a kid number 1, flight is kid number 2, freeze is kid number 3, submit is kid number 4, attach is kid number 5. Going on with normal life part of the self is the adult. If fight comes out and say, oh, I need to shout at her, right? If you're like in argument, the adult self has to recognize that this little kid is speaking, and you need to be able to comfort that little person, right? And say that, hey, I know you're angry, I will defend you, right? If you feel like you're being mistreated, it's okay, I understand you. So imagine your adult self comforting your little self. And when I heard that, I cried. Because I never thought about it that way. I feel like we are so kind of like critical with ourselves, right? We stopped to think that sometimes we're just a little kid, and sometimes all we need is that validation from ourselves that we're able to do certain things. She even made me close my eyes and imagine things, which is like fucking crazy. She said, close your eyes. Imagine that flight is a kid that wants to run away. How would you comfort that little kid? Damn, who's cutting onions in here? You know what I mean? Like, because I really imagined it, you know? And I think I said something like, I'll run for the kid, and I start hugging the kid. And then she's like, what would you do with the kid? It's like, I hug the kid. What would you say to the kid? And say, it's okay, I'm here. You don't have to run away. It will always be okay. I'll always have your back. You know, when I start to tell myself these things to myself, it's really touching because, you know, usually these things, they mean a lot more when other people say it to us, right? But sometimes that little self really just wants it to hear it from us, from ourselves, right? Because only you can give yourself the conviction to move on with your life. And I think the reason why the trauma parts of the personality have a trouble moving on with you is because you're like dragging them by the feet, like, oh, fucking let's go already, right? But you need to face them. You need to tell them, hey, guys, don't worry, okay? I'm gonna be here for you. And even if you don't believe it, you have to say. You need to have the conviction to tell these little kids in yourselves that it's going to be okay. Somehow or another, you're going to protect them. Like me, I'm gonna protect me from doing it, but I think when you vocalize it or when you write it down, you will start to believe it. Trust me. For the longest time, I was scared, you know? I was scared of, like, let's say I was scared of going to a certain place because it reminds me of that incident, right? I would wear a mask and everything, right? Because I was so scared. I remember typing in my notes like, okay, I know you're scared. Like, I'm talking to myself, like an inner monologue. Like, I know you're scared. I know all you want to do is run away, but you have to do this. And I know it's scary, but I'm gonna be here to protect you. If that ever happens, we will leave this place. But if it doesn't happen, then it shows that you're strong. Like, I was legit writing letters to myself. And I was shit scared, right? But I did it, and nothing happened. But I was able to reassure my little self. So the more that I did this, I was able to like train these little kids and tell them that, hey, it's okay. It's okay. Nothing happened, okay? After months and months of practice, I think slowly, even though I think you'll never ever be fully over the incident. You know, there will always be like residue left behind. But I think majority of the parts that I have now is able to kind of like move on with my, kind of like keep up with my normal self so that I'm able to like function better as a human being now, right? And I stopped going to the sessions after like 4 or 5 sessions because I felt that the mental frameworks were really helping me, and I felt like I didn't need to like see her anymore, which she was really like receptive about it. Like I remember telling her like, oh, I can't afford the sessions anymore, and I don't know, I feel like I'm kind of confident in like dealing with this on my own. And she was like, yeah man, you do you just come whenever you feel like you're ready again. And I feel like that's also an important part of therapy, is that you need to take the resources and you need to act upon it. You can't rely on your therapist to deal with whatever that you're dealing with. Obviously certain trauma takes longer to process, but with my instance, I felt like I didn't need to have that much time to like really depend on her. Of course with like money constraints and time constraints as well, but once I got the resources and kind of like learned what I needed to learn, I just needed to apply it in practice. And like that's another thing with therapy, is that you can pay like twice a week sessions, but if you don't practice it and if you don't apply it in your real life, it really doesn't matter. It's practically irrelevant. You're burning your money. Yeah, obviously right now I'm dealing with like not that heavy stuff anymore, but yeah, I'm thinking of going to therapy again, just like, I don't know, figure out a few things here and there that I haven't been able to figure out. But for the most part, I think the majority of my hardships resulting from that trauma, I think, has been resolved. I'm able to revisit the incident again, kind of like make peace with the people that hurt me, and I don't really seek any vengeance, or like there's nothing negative that I can say about it anymore, because truly I feel like that the event really shaped me who I am today, and I'm really proud of where I am today. So that's where everybody should seek to be. Like you need to take responsibility or take accountability for the things that happen to you as well. I mean, obviously you can't blame yourself for what happened, but you can obviously take responsibility for what had happened and how you can move on from it. I think everybody should try to be the better versions of themselves. And yeah, I hope that it really kind of like opened your eyes and see that, you know, trauma doesn't define you. Matter of fact, you get to define that trauma in your life, in your big life, and trauma is just like a little event that happened in your life. And I hope that that is something that everybody gets to experience, because don't let trauma stop you from living your life, because life is so much bigger than that, and everyone deserves a second chance at living life, you know. If you have dreams and if you have goals, don't let trauma stop you from doing that. No matter how scary it is, you are always much more capable of doing whatever that you thought you're not capable of. That's just your brain tricking you to think that you're a loser, but you're actually a W. I don't know how helpful this video is. I'm really bad at like vocalizing my thoughts. I don't know if I'm saying too much or too little, but if you have any questions, you can always leave in the comments and I'll answer it, obviously. So yeah, I hope you guys like this video. Please comment down below like whatever things I should do or should say about. If you guys like this kind of format, talking in the car, I don't know. Bye!